Since the explosion of games like Fortnite and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, the Battle Royale has become a staple genre in the gaming industry. However, while many have tried, few games in the genre have actually been able to build esports scenes that last longer than a few seasons. While events like the inaugural Fortnite World Cup were a spectacle to behold, success stories are few and far between, with a lot being thrown at the wall and very little sticking around. However, out of all the battle royales on the market today, one title has steadily risen to the top and is now producing some of the highest quality esports content in the industry. Of course, we're talking about Apex Legends. So how did Apex push past the other titans of the battle royale genre to solidify itself as one of the top battle royale esports on the market today? You're about to find out. Apex Legends was developed by Respawn Entertainment and published by EA on February 4th, 2019. The game plays like a typical battle royale, where players drop in squads of 3, playing as characters from within the Titanfall universe. Although Apex was released 2 years after Fortnite and PUBG, it was still able to stand out in its own right.
I was a big fan of PUBG, big fan of Fortnite, big fan of the BR genre since the beginning. But immediately, day one, when Apex surprise dropped and shook the world, the whole gaming industry, myself, I think, like many others, fell in love with just the raw mechanics and the raw gameplay. The engine, the game itself is so twitchy in a way that just feels great. I was actually a big fan of the original Titanfall 1. I played a lot of Titanfall multiplayer originally, and the fact that it obviously came from the same engine was kind of an evolution of that gameplay. Was great. Mixed that with a BR that was really unique and brought a lot of unique new features that really changed the game in battle royales and gaming in general, like the ping system, the revive system, the healing system, movement and sliding down hills. I mean, there's a variety of kind of specifics I could give, but overall, everything just combined to be an amazing multiplayer experience, highly competitive, super high skill gap. I don't think anyone knew how high the skill gap was when we first started playing, but it was definitely evident that a skill gap existed, and I just wanted to get better. And like many of my favorite titles that just got me hooked immediately over the past 10, 20 years, Apex had that same feeling. It had what I, kind of call the secret sauce, if you will, that very, very few games have.
Upon release, it was immediately clear that Apex had the potential to be played as a competitive title. As soon as 1 month after the game's release, teams were already being signed, and in September of 2019, the Apex Legends Preseason Invitational took place, which would be one of the first big Apex Legends LAN events in the game's history.
It was at the Apex Legends Preseason Invitational in Krakow, Poland, the first ever kind of international global LAN tournament for Apex. Match point format, when I first found out about it and then saw it live for the first time on Championship Sunday, was the moment I realized this game is different from an esports perspective. It was the most unique blend of pure entertainment plus skill plus just a great viewing experience that got you hooked, that was fun to watch, that was enticing, that was so many storylines that you could build from it. And that was the moment where I realized, wait till more people get to experience this feeling I'm feeling right now. And this experience, this the viewership of what we had a chance to experience at that event. That was obviously well before Apex kind of took off. That was before the ALGS was even announced. But that was the moment I knew for a fact Apex Esports was going to blow up, and it was something I wanted to kind of ride, be involved in and help grow and ride along with.
Building on the success of the preseason invitational, Respawn kept the hype train going by announcing the launch of the Apex Legends Global Series. The tournament circuit featured 12 live events around the world and a $3 million prize pool, with $1 million being set aside specifically for the championship at the end of the circuit. From here on out, it was clear that Respawn was equally excited as the community to see how far the game's esports scene could go, with Vince Zampella, the head of Respawn, saying in a statement, quote, "Competition is at the heart of Apex Legends. We expect that esports will play a big role in the future of Apex Legends, and it all starts here, with the Apex Legends Global Series. We look forward to seeing who, out of our millions of players, will become true legends of the arena." While the COVID-19 pandemic led to a change in the format, and each region had to have its own respective championships, the regional championships were just as hype as the in-person events.
Welcome to the ALGS Summer Circuit Super Regional Playoffs.
So who are going to be able to close out this game? The Wraith again disappears, but only momentarily. They're just waiting biding their time, watching that portal for that moment, but no! Swings down from the heavens, but luckily for Exo, the Watson manages to clutch up in that position, but that was a scary, scary moment for them.
To help facilitate online competition, Respawn has continued to push and improve on the competitive experience for players and viewers alike. One of the biggest additions that has helped Apex set itself apart from other Battle Royale esports is the introduction of the Command Center, which gives the ability to multi-view, allowing fans to watch each match through the perspective of their favorite team or player, even if that player isn't themselves a streamer.
Having Command Center was really helpful to all the viewers, and it made people more willing to go to the main channel as opposed to individual player streams. But I think that it's just really easy and really consistently entertaining to watch Apex, whether or not Command Center exists, whether or not you're watching from a pro player's perspective on their channel or watching it on the mainstream. So I think that it was a really nice cherry on top, and I think that it makes growth from here easier for the esport.
The introduction of the Command Center provided a great solution to one of the biggest issues of the Battle Royale genre as an esport, the fact that there's simply too much going on to capture everything.
I think they're still really difficult to spectate. You know, ProView has been introduced to Pro League relatively recently, and I think that that's been the biggest step up. I don't even think that's an argument in terms of the ability to follow storylines. I think that makes it a good spectator sport really is the dribbling into action. I think that Apex is a really well-paced game in maps like World's Edge and Stormpoint increasingly so. There's a really nice way for us to hop from perspective to perspective without losing too much and be able to still keep up with a lot of the key action.
There are many people that will argue that it is boring to watch competitive because they're sitting in the building most of the time. But it's that kind of build-up aspect that I feel like a lot of people enjoy, where they're sitting in a building, yeah, but after a few minutes of you scrolling through your phone, they're in the end game, and it's intense to watch. Things are always happening, and it's fun. It's rushing, if that makes sense, and it feels nice. I think Apex is doing a phenomenal job in the viewing experience, as well as doing watch parties, Command Center. I think they are way ahead of the game in terms of a viewing experience for a BR.
Along with great competition at the top with the ALGS, the tournament circuit fostered a great secondary tier of competition with the Challenger circuit, which provided content creators a way to compete for a chance to qualify for the championship as well. This provided a gateway for the casual audience to familiarize themselves with competitive Apex, especially with huge names like Nick Merckx taking part in the tournament.
Being able to have something like Challenger Circuit should be a continual thing that big streamers in the title can go back to, can compete in, and can draw a lot of viewership from, as well as feeding the competitive scene. I actually think it's a really big strength of the scene, is that we're able to get our big streamers involved in this way that feeds directly into the ALGS. I don't think that, 10 years down the line, streaming is going to be the thing that determines your success in Pro League, if Pro League still exists in this form, but I think it's a really good sort of pipeline that we have right now, and if you're a streamer that isn't competing in Challenger Circuit or tournaments like it, I don't know what you're doing, because it's free viewership.
Unfortunately, while the ALGS and the Challenger Circuit have been mostly a success thus far, there are still areas for improvement to further incentivize players to compete in the Challenger Circuit.
But I think that the first step to developing a more stable pro scene and Challenger Circuit is going to be blurring that line a little bit and creating an actual academy sort of system where teams can field multiple rosters, where they can have one in Challenger Circuit, and where Challenger Circuit actually has prizing or more rewards for playing through it. Because I think one of the biggest complaints that I absolutely understand is you could be a pro player, you could be dropped from TSM. Let's say, I'm going to pick somebody who it would never happen to, so it doesn't seem like I'm flaming. Let's say Hal gets dropped from TSM, right? And nobody picks him up in the Pro League because they all have their spots. The fact that Hal now has to play through the Challenger Circuit with perhaps a bunch of people that he has played on a team with before, he should at least be compensated for doing well in that tournament over the course of all of them. His prize shouldn't be that he's just made it back to where he was and now gets to compete next season, because you've missed out on a player as a whole season of income because of it. It should definitely be less point having 2 pro leagues, but blurring the lines between those two, making it a lot more attractive to play in Challenger Circuit, to get these teams playing consistently.
Along with areas for improvement for the Challenger Circuit, there were some notable issues that appeared during the ALGS Split 2 playoffs, the first offline event for Apex since the beginning of the pandemic. From EA originally planning on covering the travel and accommodation for 20 of the 40 teams, something that they quickly corrected after mass outrage from the community, to issues with the tournament being played on low-end PCs, it's clear that despite the playoffs being a relative success overall, there's still a lot of work to do in improving the LAN experience for players.
Communication is something I really want fixed in this industry, because there's a lot of situations where Respawn kind of releases things, or EA releases things last minute, rule sets or changes or patches or communication in general of where LAN is or if LAN's even happening or stuff like that. It is kind of mind-blowing to me that tickets go on sale a month before, and a month is honestly not a lot of time. Some people are doing they need weeks to a month to schedule things off, especially if it's going to be a full weekend or a full week and stuff like that. And prices for planes are extremely much cheaper 2 months before than a month before. I understand you can't plan everything to the T. It's just a little bit more communication would be nice.
However, there were larger issues that carried over from the Split 2 playoffs to the eventual championship event in Raleigh, North Carolina. The biggest issue was EA's handling of COVID protocols, along with some teams being unable to secure visas for players ahead of time for the tournament, leading to them scrambling to find substitutes. All in all, 16 of the 40 teams in attendance were playing either with substitutes or as a duo during their matches. EA's COVID protocols were further criticized as some players tested positive for COVID heading into the finals and were unable to play, as EA did not have isolated rooms for the players to play in.
I do know that once the event actually started, the people at the event didn't have a whole lot of ways to change things. It's like you've already set up quite a bit, and as the situation developed, as I think a lot more players got COVID during the event that was anticipated, things got more complicated, but there wasn't a whole lot of ability for the people who were physically there to adapt in any sort of ways. I think that the arena staff, not the EA staff, but the arena staff had very little idea what was going on. A lot of them were learning about Apex for the first time. They were dealing with an esports event seemingly for the first time, although I'm sure that can't be the case, but it seemed like a very confusing time in their lives. And so I think that the adaptations from EA's side, while leaving a lot of players disappointed, were ultimately the best that they could do. I also know that, people were wanting a space for players to play with COVID, and I also want that space because I don't want players to be left without a way to play, especially when they've worked really hard to either make it here or once here worked really hard to push themselves into the finals. But also talking to some of the tournament ops and considering staffing challenges, it's really difficult as a company, no matter what company, whether you're EA or PNC or a third party, to tell employees that they are going to have to work in an environment with people that have COVID.
Along with numerous other issues with players crashing during the game.
This guy crashed! Don't shoot him, bro. He crashed. Don't shoot him. Do not shoot him.
And some audio problems. Apex's first big offline event with spectators since the COVID pandemic started was somewhat overshadowed by all of the issues.
One of the things that I think we have to consider as well is that, for the most part, the tournament admins that you see at the event, and I know I brought this up earlier, that work for EA are doing the most that they can with the budget and resources that they are given. So the fault for any lack of preparation, say due to COVID, or the lack of assisting teams with their visas earlier, often stems from the fact that you do have to fight a lot of battles with higher level execs to convince them that this is worth your time. And picking your battles in this way can often, of course, lead to you picking one that leaves the players without a whole lot of visa options, or in some cases that lets other things like those visa options slide to the wayside because you're fighting for, I don't know, more seating at the event, better computers at the event, which I know was talked about, but also I don't think was talked about enough as an improvement from Sweden, because these computers were a lot better for our players, and I thought that just at the start of the event, hearing about that, I was quite happy with, because you got to see these players arguably play a lot closer to their best.
Too much noise. I don't know if it's just me as a commentator thing, but I think I'm going to give things away if I make too much noise. But here is Sentinels, and good morning, good night to Esports Arena.
One thing that Apex Legends has going for it is that there's equal potential in both the PC and mobile market, thanks to the release of Apex Legends Mobile. Considering the esports success of other mobile battle royales like PUBG Mobile, it's not a stretch to think that something similar could happen for Apex itself.
Our Apex Mobile is going to be, well, I think one of the biggest conversions that you can get from people that are interested in other regions that maybe don't have access to computers, who really want to play Apex. And even those who do have access to computers in North America, some of them already prefer Apex Mobile. So I think that converting it into, I haven't really seen a lot of mobile esports that take off, and I don't think that we are at a point in professional Apex where we can do the League of Legends Wild Rift thing, where they went, all right, well, League of Legends is already an esport, so Wild Rift is also going to be an esport, and we're just going to use basically the same infrastructure that we've already built up around League of Legends, siphon some of that off and make it Wild Rift. I don't think that we can do that in Apex just yet, so it will take a little bit more concerted effort, but as to whether it'll be a competitive game, like whether people will download a lot of it and play a lot of it, I think there's no question. It's a very accessible game. There's a very fast pace. Movement is really nice, and I think they've done a good job of integrating that in the mobile client. So they have all the most attractive parts of Apex. So why not?
While Apex was able to grow during the pandemic, there's still quite a large divide between the casual and competitive communities of the game.
How I see it is Valorant and CS are a tactical shooter, and their changes are pretty competitive. Their changes are, whether it's good or bad, whether the general community likes it, it's healthier for the competitive state most of the time. There are a few times where they do a patch where they believe that it was good and then it turns out to be bad, but they're pretty, in my opinion, they're pretty good at tuning things to a competitive standpoint. And I feel like if most games make their game competitive, where things are fairly balanced and constantly being worked on, you're forcing the general community to play it. And just like how Valorant, there is a general community that would play it, right? And that will also make them connect more with the esports level, because the games are the same. The game and the meta and the understanding is the same.
Yeah, I come from Gears, and Gears 4 was actually a pretty popular console esport, was growing substantially, and I think a big mistake they made is completely different tuning and weapon settings, so the weapons themselves did different levels of damage in a competitive match versus a casual match, and that was the downfall of the game, one of the many, few downfalls of the game, in my opinion. So if you get that extreme, you create a large divide. If you create a large divide, there's no funnel, and you really need the top of the funnel growth if you want an esport to grow. So you really need the casual audience to be bought in and on board, and finding a way to kind of get to enjoying competitive a little more. You have to create that user journey, and by creating a divide, you're basically killing that user journey at step 1, step 2. And I think Respawn's done a great job of it compared to other game developers overall. I think there's no perfect scenario there. I think they've struck a good balance, and they need to continue to try and do that.
Entire victory! LG is out! Optic Gaming Skittle Cage goes out as well! Zero's gonna do it! Wide left flank, and just like that, Reignite is gonna do it! They are your champions!
Ultimately, with the game's popularity at an all-time high as the most streamed game on Twitch since the new season started, and the ALGS becoming one of the most talked about leagues during the first half of 2022, the game has shown that it has the potential to stick around and continue to grow, as long as the community is able to grow with it.
If you talk to the EA competitive gaming team, their goal, their mission for Apex Legends Global Series is for Apex to become the most watched FPS esport in the world, which is lofty, simple, which I like the simplicity of it. It's a lofty goal. And for Apex to become a tier 1 esport all up. I think we're actually close to the tier 1, and we're getting pretty close to the second goal, being the most watched FPS title. Right there alongside Valorant, CSGO, and I think maybe above or alongside Fortnite. But to get it to that level, I think that's a great question. I have kind of strong opinions there. I think the biggest thing, if I had to pick one, is in-game content and team skins, player skins, and helping the ecosystem grow and thrive, because the more you support the organizations in themselves, the TSMs, the NRG, the more they're going to invest to grow the ecosystem. They're going to hire more streamers and content creators and help the scene grow. The fact that we're 3 years in and still don't have in-game team skins and in content to help people become fans of pro players and bridge the gap between kind of casual audience discovering these teams and growing the viewership, I think is a significant opportunity for growth.
As Apex Legends continues to grow and make its push towards becoming a Tier 1 esport, it's become clear that the community around it has blossomed into one of the best around. In spite of some of the divide between the casual and competitive audiences, they're all united by the same thing: the fact that Apex is a super fun game. With a growing and dedicated community behind it, the goal of becoming one of the biggest esports in the world doesn't seem like hyperbole.
Being as objective as possible, I think it's going to continue to grow substantially. I think we're just getting started. I think the goal of being a most watched FPS esport in the world is going to be achieved in 3 or 4 years, and I think it'll be similar to Counter-Strike, right, which has kind of lived in infamy, that has survived the test of time as an FPS title, and I think that Respawn in particular is going to be a big part of the reason why. Plus our content creators and influencers who help support the growth of the game. That's one big thing too. The Apex community, the pro player community, is honestly the best pro player community I've ever been a part of, and I've been a part of quite a few in terms of how collaborative and supportive they are, how much they want to see the game grow, the feedback that they give and how they give it. Sometimes they're critical, but I think it's going to continue to grow, and that's a big part of why. And I think Respawn's going to deliver some amazing content in 3-4 years time. I don't know what it is yet. We'll see, but you got to imagine. We know they've been hiring and on a crazy hiring spree. You got to imagine they're ramping up and getting ready for something big, and I think that's going to continue to contribute to Apex Legends' growth.
What are your thoughts on Apex Legends? Do Battle Royales have a place in the esports market? Do you think it'll ever be as big as League of Legends? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. This video is made possible thanks to our wonderful patrons. Massive thank you to everyone on this list, and shout out to Brendan, Cloud, QB, Foxy, Mauve, Pachana, Shampoo, Spartacus, and Yashichi for being Platinum supporters. And an extra special shout out to Marco for being our Diamond supporter. Happy November! If you want to talk to us, check out our Discord. Or if you want to support our channel and get info on unreleased videos, check out our Patreon. If you want to help us out in a different way, leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting the bell to stay up to date is also appreciated. My name is Jonah. Thanks for watching.